Hi, I'm Bob Vila. Welcome home again to our big project in the Big Apple. We're here in Dumbo, down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass, and today we're spending a fair amount of time looking at our historic facade. The bricks are being taken apart and put back together. Inside, we'll give you a progress report, look at all the steel stud work that's almost completed, and also some steel staircases. Stick around, it's good to have you home again. Working in an urban setting like this means a lot of special care has to be taken. We're doing the facade restoration. The facade is nearly 175 years old and it's in very bad shape. But one of the key things that has to be done is to protect any pedestrians, and that's why we've got this iron scaffolding up with a platform over it. The brick up there looks pretty bad and it is in pretty bad shape, but as far as I know, we've already done some of the structural work on the inside of the walls. Let's go inside, let's find my son Chris Vila, who's our clerk of the works here, and find out what kind of progress we've made. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Good, Dad. How are you?
Well, this is looking fine. The staircases are great.
Yeah, this just came in last week. This was fabricated here in Brooklyn, especially for the project, and installed last week. So
really? So they're all steel, but they're obviously they have to be custom.
Right, it's all custom for the job. Exactly.
And every run of stairs is different from the ground floor up to the first floor. Exactly. It's a straight run, and here you've got...
Right, and then actually from the top floor, we've got another run going up to the private roof deck.
I imagine in a city of steel skyscrapers, there'd be a lot of companies making staircases.
Quite a few, especially here in Brooklyn and outside of Manhattan.
And these are all individual angles that are then spot welded.
All spot welded in. Exactly.
What do you suppose this cost?
About $23,000.
For the whole...
Everything you see here, top to bottom.
Right.
That was our cost.
Okay. And then how will it be finished?
Well, what we're going to do is lay a piece of bullnose oak on each tread.
Okay.
Bolt it through with a cap on top of it. Yeah. Same thing on the landings.
So it'll basically look like a wooden staircase.
Look like a wooden staircase.
That's terrific. So demolition almost complete. How many dumpsters have we gone through so far?
We've actually gone through 8. And we ran into, you know, quite a few problems. We've taken out a lot of brick throughout the whole process. It's now done. And we're just kind of cleaning up the last remnants out here on the scaffolding, which has been...
4 weeks into the job, 8 dumpsters. That's a lot of debris.
It's a lot of stuff, a lot of surprises there.
What about that roof?
The roof also proved to be kind of a challenge. We couldn't keep it. We've actually had to rip the entire thing out. We've got a temporary seal up there right now. So just as we put in the windows, we've got a water barrier. And we're going to be in the process of putting in a permanent roof with all the mechanicals, bulkheads, everything like that.
Now, they've got most of the steel partitioning in. They're working on the ceiling.
Just finishing up this week.
How does this work with our old, beautiful sandblasted beams?
We're going to get to keep about 6 inches of the beams exposed. That off. Exposed, exactly. We sandblasted this, you know, what it was before. It's not beautiful, so we want to preserve as much of that as we can.
Yeah. And obviously, we're not framed here, but this will be the entrance to the apartment.
Entrance here. We're going to run a wall out here.
Right. And then let's go through the layout. This is one big open room with a kitchen in this area,
Kitchen, living area, and then this unit's going to have 2 bedrooms, 1, 2, each with a large closet and a bathroom here.
Good-sized bathroom.
Yeah, good-sized New York bathroom.
Good. And then what about the masonry? That's the big thing, huh?
Well, this facade is from 1835, so practically 170 years old.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, we spent a good part of the last 2 weeks really repairing and restoring, so until we've actually gotten to this point. So
and this is the old-fashioned way. I mean, these 2 courses are structural.
This is structural. This was taken apart and put back together.
All Portland cement
all
throughout?
Done. Yes, with Portland cement.
And then the actual veneer that you see from the street is antique.
This is antique. These bricks are original. And actually, we had a real problem finding replacement bricks that were this size, which is 8 1/4. We finally found a supplier here in Brooklyn who's going to have them to us next week, so we'll be able to finish up that part of the facade.
And the mortar, which you're looking at, some original mortar here, is a lime mortar that's, you know, mid-19th century, and it's really important to repoint and rebuild with the same look.
We'll be doing exactly that.
Okay. And then there's other elements to this. We've got, you've already removed the cast iron.
Remove this cast iron sill here.
Yeah, and the cast iron sills, boy, they are heavy and they are beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah.
So these will be cleaned up and put back down there. And then up above, the cast iron lintels.
The lintels will also be removed.
Yeah, now they're just one of the few decorative elements in the whole front facade.
Yeah, so this will be taken off and cleaned up and put back on when.
And these tie rods, They're not ornamental. In some buildings, you'll see these made in the shape of stars.
Right.
Which, of
You
course,
see that all over New York.
harkens to the federal period in our history. But they really are structural because they're helping to tie this facade to the structure, and usually they're tied in, as they are here, to some of the wooden members that you find inside, either the floor system or, in this case, just a post. Right. Now, earlier in the week, we had a fellow named Jeremy Armstrong, who works for the developer over here, explain to us the whole process of pressure washing. Because before any of this masonry work got done, we had a crew on the front of the building washing it down. Watch. Jeremy Armstrong is involved with project management with the developers here, and you've had some experience with some of the historic facades. Now, what are we doing as an initial stage here on our building?
Well, the building has a lot of dirt and grime and paint and stains on it. We want to remove most of those things. So first we're going to start with water, pressurized water. We're going to start with about 1,000 PSI. We're going to wash the whole facade and see what comes off.
Now, with 1,000 pounds per square inch, you don't have to worry about damaging the brick?
At that point, not really. We will gradually increase the pressure until we get to a point where we see or we feel that the brick is going to be damaged, and we want to stop right at that point.
All right, now what if you reach that point and you're just shooting water at 2,000 PSI, but you still can't get the gray paint off of the brick?
Well, there's a variety of different cleansers and chemicals, acids. Some are basic, some are neutral. We're going to have to test and see what's really going to work.
Now, I've looked closely at this facade, Jeremy, and a lot of these brick look like not only are they loose, but they're kind of going at an angle, like parts of the foundation may have sagged. What will the masons be doing to restore the brickwork?
Well, the building's been there for a long time. The building dates back to about 1830, so there's going to have been some settling, and lots of work has been done to the building over the decades.
Right.
We're going to remove about 25% of the bricks in the building that are either cracked or unlevel, and we're going to reinstall everything square, plumb, and level.
Does that include like the windowsills and the lintels and all those pieces?
Windowsills, there's metal heads. The third story was actually added on after the building was first built.
Right.
There's a different type of brick, there's a different type of head. We're going to have to use different bricks and different heads, so we're going to have to be pretty careful and take our time.
Great. Well, it's going to take a couple of months, but it's going to look beautiful.
It is.
Thanks, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
In Brooklyn, the 20th century saw revolutionary new concrete and steel construction techniques that allowed industrial magnates like Robert Gare to build bigger, better factories with larger windows. Today, they're ideal for artist lofts. The other day, we visited neighbor Jane Walentas to get a closer look at a pretty unusual project she's been working on for a long time. This is unbelievable. Now, how many carved horses are we standing amidst in
There
here?
are 48 horses.
48. So
and
what
two
is it?
chariots.
So what kind of a carousel was it then?
This was made by the Philadelphia Toboggan Company in Philadelphia.
In what year?
1922.
And you said earlier it's a three-tier?
Three-row carousel.
Three-row carousel.
Rows. The big horses were on the outside, and then the ponies on the inside. They were pie-shaped panels.
And it was in 1922 that it was
22.
assembled. But I imagine this company that made carousels probably had a lot of artisans from Italy or someplace doing it.
They did, Italy and Germany.
All hand-carved.
They're all hand-carved. This was a wonderful carver who did this carousel, Frank Coretta.
Yeah, tell us about some of the features that you're looking at here.
This is a realistic feature where
Missing
the
tooth.
bit goes, and I've been told, I don't know if it's true, that only the Philadelphia Toboggan Company did this detail on the horses, which is interesting.
And you actually mentioned the carver's name, so you know some of the people that did this
Frank
work.
Coretta. I've been down to the Philadelphia Toboggan Company, still exists in Germantown. They don't make carousels any longer. They make amusement park ski ball games and things like that, but they haven't made carousels.
Well,
in a
these
long
are
time.
works of art, yeah.
So the trappings were beautifully carved, as you can see.
Again, it's all wood. There's no applied
All wood,
pieces or anything.
definitely not.
Yeah. Which is why some of these pieces command huge prices. Now, what was the carousel worth when you bought it all of a piece? It was several $100,000, right?
We paid, I believe, $385,000. I don't want. It's a while ago now.
Yeah, and
it was sold piece by piece, though, and that was the way the auction was structured. Each horse was sold off individually. They kept track of all those bids, and then they totaled all those bids and offered it as a whole to try and keep it together.
And of course, your goal in bringing it here to Brooklyn is to reassemble it, right?
Yes, yes. We rode on this carousel the day of the auction.
Right.
It was working when we bought it, but the park was being sold for development. I don't believe it was ever. The whole amusement park was being sold off.
So eventually,
Carousel was the centerpiece of the park.
eventually you hope to have it here in a waterfront park.
Yes, that's what it was bought for. It was bought.
You stripped so much of the paint. Are there any pieces that are still in the condition that you got it in?
Well, some of the chariots I haven't done too much on. Do you want to take
Sure.
a little walk over here?
So this is a side panel to one of the chariots, which of course is the kids wrote the horses, the young couples.
The right. The young couples, you're right.
Let's talk about that. The little Cupid.
The cherub.
Yeah, cherub.
I started to take some paint off here just out of curiosity. I was dying to see what was under there. You can see it was all in this kind of
So that what you had
blue.
was an original dark blue sky, and over the years it got painted up with this baby blue.
Yeah.
And the flesh tones make it look almost plastic, don't they?
Right. And they refer to this as park paint today. You know, every couple of years they just repainted the whole carousel
It was
to
just part of
freshen it up.
the maintenance of the different pieces.
Exactly. But the original paint was very beautiful and very detailed.
Well,
You can see the gorgeous colors on the back of this horse.
These are
for
original
instance.
colors on the side of this horse.
Yeah. And all the leafing. We'll restore all that leafing. The
You mean there was
silver and
gold leaf and silver leaf?
And silver leaf.
Yeah. Yeah, but the
And then all
cobalt
the
blues.
striping
Yeah.
will be restored.
So let's talk about the actual process of restoring this.
Okay, Fiona's
This is
the best. She does a great
Fiona
job.
Westphal. Hi, Fiona.
Fiona's a sculptress on her own right, and I'm lucky to have her helping here.
So what has to be done in order? You can't put paint stripper on these pieces and just.
A lot of people do that,
Mm-hmm.
and I was lucky that time wasn't an issue. So it really ruins the horses.
It does.
To do that, to strip all the paint off.
So the approach is to scrape it all off with a sharp blade.
Yeah, that's actually the best way to do it because you can be really careful and study the paint, the original paint, which is underneath it, and you can much control the layers of paint and find the original layers.
Now, when you poke through and you see white, is that plaster or?
That's actually the gesso,
Gesso?
what these horses were primed with, original.
So before they ever got any of this original paint, and I guess this horse was a Palomino, first they evened everything out with gesso. And look, if you could just move your hand a little bit there, Fiona. This is rosier here, kind of I mean, there's subtle painting. It's not.
Yeah, these are really beautifully done. The colors blend and mix, and it's also very unusual color palette,
Yeah.
I think, at the time to see the old colors.
They're oil-based paints, right?
I believe they are, yeah.
So, Jane, you've got 48 horses. What's the timetable?
Well, we're going to start to paint in a few months. We're almost done with this phase of discovery, and
It'll take, what, a year to get them all restored and painted again?
I think we could do it in less than a year. It sort of breaks down to people coming in and doing the leafing and people doing the horse skins, and
So it's in the future.
a year would be great.
It's in the
really.
future for Dumbo. Thanks
Definitely.
for sharing.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
Thanks for visiting.
All right, so we're back to the building now. We've got quite an international cast of characters here. Reynaldo, who works for Dino, our general contractor, I should get our eye protection out, is demolishing the window surround. And we've got Brian Cayley here and Tim McFadden from Pella, who are going to tell us a little bit about the features of the window. Tim, this is a replacement window that's been custom made for us, right?
Actually, no, Bob. This is a full tear-out.
Oh, it is?
Window.
It is,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a full tear-out commercial double hung.
I see.
That Pella manufactured.
What does that mean, a full tear-out?
Well, it's basically included the frame, exterior casing.
Right.
We have an exterior subsill.
Okay. And what we liked about it is that it has that 6/6 format that goes with the architectural style of
Right.
an 1830s, 1840s
Right.
city building.
Right. If you look at the bottom rail, we have a 3.5-inch bottom rail, which mimics the historic of the window
Right.
years back.
But it
And-
still has a thin profile in
Correct.
terms of the mutton
We
bars.
use a 7/8 bar
Yeah.
with a narrow check rail as well.
Great. Now, Brian, you're here to advise on the installation, right?
Yes,
Because it's
yes.
not easy putting in a new window in these old openings.
Right.
What's the first thing these guys have to do?
Basically is just tear out the existing window completely, frame and all, bring it right down to the existing masonry opening.
Okay.
Right? And then at that point on, they'll make a box to fit within the masonry opening.
And that box would be with
2 by 6 with material.
framing stuff.
Frame material, exactly.
All right, well, Dino's getting the jacks cut right now, and we've got the basic box in place. Now, Brian, what else has to happen here? You have to center this, don't you?
Yes, we do. The box that you see here right here about is basically structural, just to get it into the existing masonry opening.
Okay.
And now we're going to take measurements on the box to the center of the window and to give it 2 jacks on either side.
And these are just blocks to space it out to the right size.
Nice.
And so these are the jack studs then, right?
Yes.
Okay, what do you think, Dino? Should we try it out?
Yes.
All right, give me a hand there, Brian. Got some packaging to remove, guys? On the bottom?
Hey, Fee.
Hey, you did the math right. That looks good already. Now, Brian, what's the key here in terms of the final installation?
Well, actually, just checking to see if it's spaced out properly, which it is. We have some masonry or clips to apply to the inside jamb of the window, outside jamb of the window,
Okay.
and wrap it around the framing.
Okay, so now we've got the mounting straps on, and we're ready to put it in, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And as long as your framed opening is plumb and true, you don't have to worry too much about what's going to happen with the window.
Exactly, Bob. But we still have to shim at certain locations.
We got our shim shingles ready.
Here's some.
All right, so before we do any kind of fastening, we'll just check to make sure the window's plumb.
Good. Beautiful.
All right. And so now,
Now, once that's done, you can bend over the straps and
they're pliable enough that you can just bend them by hand.
yes, you can. And fasten them to the rough opening.
Now, the window comes as a package with the trim already for the exterior, right?
Yes, actually, we shipped the flat casing and some sill-nose casing for the exterior loose because we were dealing with an existing masonry opening that was out of plumb and out of square.
Right.
We really needed to cut that on site.
Yeah, and I know when you're talking masonry, it's always a different ballgame.
Yes.
Now, should we use insulation in the spaces there?
Yes, without a doubt. Once we get the casing on and so forth, before we close up the inside with some interior casing, fill up all the voids with some insulation.
And even in the real tight,
Yes, yep.
smaller voids?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I always like to push it in there with a shim shingle and get
Exactly.
it done. Well, fellas, thanks for coming out. We're running out of time. Come home again next week. We'll be talking with Eddie Fisher, our electrician, and we're also taking you on a tour of the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Till then, I'm Bob Vila. It's good to have you home again. Visit bobvila.com for everything you need to get the job done right. You'll find Home Again highlights, interactive tools for planning your next project, and helpful how-to articles for every room in your home. bobvila.com, the ultimate home site.